so good to have you boys home.
She ran her hand over her head, and her hair detached from her scalp in massive, effortless clusters. Within days, Peggy Carr was nearly bald, her body racked by violent convulsions. She fell into a coma, her internal organs failing until she died a slow, agonizing death. The hospital was in a state of chaos. Her sons began to waste away next, suffering from the same unexplained rapid decline.
I've never seen anything like this.
Only one thing explained what was happening. Therefore, the police got involved, and what they found would later make headlines that would echo for years to come. Welcome to the Edible Files, where we really like to just ruin the things you love to consume. In 1988, Susan Gorick looked at the most intense exam in front of her and felt the weight of a dead woman's life. This was the single most dangerous moment of the early investigation. The entire operation would have collapsed before it started if she failed. To get into the room with the suspected genius, George Trepal, Susan couldn't just make friends. She had to prove she was one of his kind.
Our only way in is to join Mensa ourselves, and I'm the one who's going to do it.
She had to legally qualify. Therefore, she spent weeks in a state of high-pressure study, knowing that if her IQ score didn't hit the 98th percentile, she would never get near George. The wait was agonizing, but she didn't just pass. Under her alias, Sherry Gwynn, she scored high enough to be officially inducted. She wasn't just an outsider anymore. She was a peer. Therefore, when she attended the Mensa Murder Mystery Weekend in April 1989, she looked like a brilliant woman seeking a new social circle. She found George soft-spoken and arrogant.
I'm sorry, but that's impossible.
Oh, really? And
Susan had to hit the perfect balance of intelligence, smart enough to pique his interest, but naive enough to let him believe he was her mentor.
I found the concept of a paradox.
For 15 months, Susan lived in a state of hyper-awareness. Every time George tested her, he was looking for a crack in her intellectual armor. The danger was physical.
Sherry, come over here for a sec.
In one chilling close call,
I brewed this in my home lab.
George handed Susan a small bottle of a homeopathic remedy.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Susan had to play the grateful protege
I made it myself. It's to help calm your nerves.
while knowing her friend was a serial poisoner. She rushed the vial to the FBI.
Lead. It had lead.
George was already experimenting on her body. In another verified close call,
This is it.
George invited Susan into a private garage laboratory, a place no one else was allowed to enter. As she stood among the beakers and mystery novels, George handed her a home-brewed beer. Susan knew the Carrs had been poisoned through something they drank. But to refuse could spark suspicion. To drink could mean death.
Sorry, I'd love to have a beer, but I'm on a diet.
George watched her with a critical eye. She survived, but the psychological toll was massive. She was befriending a man who, at some point during a recorded conversation, told her that the Carr poisoning was just a personal vendetta. He had spent years observing the Carr family and knew they rarely locked their doors. During a window when the home was unoccupied, he walked right through their unlocked door and into the kitchen. He took the 8-pack of 16-ounce glass Coca-Cola bottles back to his own lab. George possessed a professional bottle capping machine. He used a tiny tool to meticulously pry the metal caps off without bending the edges, then added the thallium nitrate. To the naked eye, they were factory perfect. He returned the bottles to the kitchen and watched through his window for weeks as they drank the poison. The checkmate came when George and his wife decided to move out. Susan convinced him to rent her the actual house he was vacating. The moment George handed her the keys, he handed the state the legal right of entry. Because Susan was now the lawful tenant, she could invite forensic experts into the home without a search warrant for every room. In a hidden workbench drawer in the garage, they found a small brown bottle. It was thallium nitrate. They also found the capping machine he used to seal Peggy Carr's fate. As the handcuffs finally clicked, George looked at Susan, waiting for his only friend to defend him, but Susan Garrick looked at him in the eye and revealed her badge. And one of the most incriminating evidence they had was in the final search. They found a script George had written for a Mensa game years prior. It featured a protagonist who poisoned his neighbor's soft drink because their noise was unbearable. He thought he was the smartest person in the room, but he never realized his greatest admirer was actually his executioner. True story. YouTube thought you might like this next suggested video. Subscribe!